Hello, everyone. Welcome to Graveyard Shift Sports. We're going to break down the big news in sports this past week. Got the big three, and then we've got a couple of juicy sideline stories to talk about. First story, Team USA inspired in Four Nations loss. So, they expect to win now is what this says on story from ESPN. So this was an interesting saga, right? Because we beat them when we played earlier, the first time at Canada.
Yeah.
It was dramatic a little bit, right? The whole booing our national anthem thing, and then three fights in the first however many
9 seconds.
Yeah, casual. Don't boo our anthem. What do you think about that? First of all, let's talk about that for a second, because I saw a bunch of mixed feelings on whether that was just sportsmanship, good old fashioned sports, or it was offensive.
No, I love it because that's what hockey is, right? They have a motto, or it's basically like if somebody calls you out that you're going to fight them, then you have to fight them, and that's just how it is. And they know that like there's a unspoken rule that you don't go after their skill players. So we're not going to go and try and pick a fight with Connor McDavid.
The skill player. Let's explain what a skill player is.
Yeah, so a skill player is somebody that's extremely fast at being able to juggle the puck and really agile on the ice. Whereas then you have your other guys, which are usually defenders that are just huge and bulky. Mm-hmm. And those guys are usually the ones that do the fighting.
So we had our big guys out at the beginning of the game when we played at Canada, right?
Yes. And so we got
they were not
booed
happy about the booing of the anthem.
And so it was basically, we as Americans said, okay, we need to set the stage here. You're not going to boo our national anthem and disrespect us like that. So before the first fight even happened, the second Kachuk brother had already called out the guy that he was going to fight. So that's why you saw after the first fight happened, right when they restarted, they immediately dropped their gloves, and the other Kachuk brother went out there and started fighting. That was already predetermined because he had already yelled across hey, once they finish and we start up again, we're going.
I'm after you. Yeah. Crazy. When I first heard that they booed our anthem, I was like, that is so rude. And then I was hearing other people's takes on it, and it's at the end of the day, this is sports, a rivalry situation essentially. So
it is a rivalry thing. It's also been hockey was originated in Canada, so they look at it as their sport. And the fact that we now have youth development programs in America, and you're consistently seeing more and more people actually get into the sport of hockey year over year, we're getting better and better at it. So
yeah,
it's it's only a matter of time until America takes it over.
Yeah, Canada has been for a while just the hockey country, right? But anyway, so they booed us when we played them the first time, and then we're playing them in the final game of the Four Nations, and of course we boo their anthem. I think they said at the beginning of the game, "Please be respectful of the anthems," and nobody listened. We all knew that was going to happen. So, of course, we booed them back. And then the hockey is a wild sport. It really is. And watching this game as someone who isn't a diehard hockey fan was kind of hard. They were going so fast, I couldn't even follow what was going on. It was a lot. We only were able to watch the first half because it was just so stressful to watch because they were going so fast. Which I think they commented on that after the game, right? How it was one of the fastest games they played.
Well, it makes sense because the way that the game started, Canada basically put all of their skill players out, which one sent the signal, hey, we're not going to start with fights this time. Yeah. But then two, they also basically made the point, we're going to try and score in the first 5 minutes before we start rotating.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's over. Canada won. I think we put up a really good fight, though. I think that I was watching some interviews, and it sounded like both teams kind of felt like it could have gone either way, is the review that I got.
What I think should happen is, since we beat them on Canadian soil, and they beat us on American soil.
Play them somewhere else.
I think we got to play a third game in Mexico.
Mexico.
And that's just the only way that we
have
can
hockey in Mexico?
There can't be. I mean, we got hockey in Miami, Florida, and Tampa. So
yeah. It'll be interesting to see how things go in the future, because I think we really showed up, America that is, showed up in this four nations. So it'll be interesting to follow the saga and who continues to be on top in the hockey world. We shall see.
What'd you think of the Miracle on Ice speech that they showed before the game started? Did you like it, or did you think it was kind of silly, since that was a throwback to us versus Russia during Cold War type deal?
Oh, I think I was indifferent, honestly. I'm not like, I've only seen the movie one time, and it was when you showed me. So what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I get hyped by that speech every time I hear it. So I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I can understand where some of the critics' views come from with thinking that it was a little bit silly to show it before this one. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw Dave Portnoy tweet about it and say that he thought it was dumb, which I think that's one where everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That speech, though, every time I see it, gotta be ready to run through a brick wall.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good speech. Gets you going for sure. Okay, next story. Top free agents, QB-wise, for the NFL. And there's one, of course, that we've got to talk about specifically. But these are the top 5, according to CBS Sports. Number 5 on the list, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, man. Kirk really, you look like 2 years ago, and Kirk was phenomenal, which is why he got the crazy contract that he
Vikings,
did.
Right?
Yeah, he was on the Vikings for a long time, and he was great. But then they were obviously going to move in a new direction. Contract was up. Kirk Cousins getting older, coming off of a torn Achilles, and had to recover from that. But before he tore that Achilles, I mean, he was balling out. Now, given he was thrown to this guy named Justin Jefferson, who is one of the best receivers that we've come out of rookie year and just continue to dominate year after year.
Yeah.
But he goes down to Atlanta this past year, has the starting role, and then loses the starting role halfway through to a guy that they drafted 6th overall, 8th overall, something like that. Top 10 draft pick this past year, even though they had just paid a guy who had never started for him, this being the Atlanta Falcons, never started for him, never been in the building before. They draft somebody after telling him that it's his team, and then about 6 to 8 games into the season, gets benched for this other guy. And so I think you saw the vintage Kirk Cousins when they were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but then you also had the games where he threw 5 interceptions. Yeah. And I think in this free agency cycle, I think what's going to happen is that teams aren't going to look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers games and see that version of Kirk Cousins. I think they're going to focus more on the 5 interception game and his age and the fact that he tore his Achilles. And so I think the future of Kirk Cousins is basically like, hey, we can bring in this guy. Mm-hmm. He's a good either bridge quarterback to teach a newcomer that we're going to draft, or a younger QB that needs a little bit of mentoring. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But I don't view him as probably getting a starting position unless the team like the Raiders take him as their quarterback to bridge it. But
yeah, it's tough to see because he was so good at the Vikings, but
yeah,
it didn't go well in Atlanta. So.
It makes you wonder though, like, don't get me wrong, Kirk Cousins passing yardage season over season, phenomenal. But also when he was in the Vikings, he had Justin Jefferson. So how much was that Kirk? How much was that Justin Jefferson? I think you could argue either way.
Yeah. Next is Russell Wilson.
Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Steelers, has said that they're going to be having some huge changes. So I think what that means, that's tough because it's going to be the same question that they had last year. Who gets the starting role in Pittsburgh? Does it go to Justin Fields? Does it go to Russell Wilson? I believe wherever Russell Wilson goes to, he's still going to be being paid by the Denver Broncos. I think he's got 1 or 2 years more to be paid out by them.
Oh.
So he could take another deal like he did with Pittsburgh.
He's on the Steelers, but he's being paid by the Broncos.
Yeah. So I think this past year he took like a $1 or $2 million contract because he was getting $36 million guaranteed from the Denver Broncos that he was getting paid out.
What?
So he's a good budget pickup for literally any team. Now, Russell Wilson needs to accept that, but since he took the $2 million deal this past year, I don't see him turning something down.
No.
I see the Steelers moving on from him just because they did the same old Steelers move by making it to the playoffs and then immediately fizzling out.
Yeah, so the Steelers, so the next on the list, Justin Fields is on here too.
Yeah.
So
I think they
have 2 free agent quarterbacks right now.
I think the Steelers will re-sign Justin Fields and make him the starter. Because he played well. He was like 4-2 in the first 6 games when he was starting because Russell Wilson had hurt himself in preseason by pushing a weighted sled.
That's tough.
So I think they'll run with him.
Yeah.
1, because he's younger. 2, he's a similar play style. Just obviously with more experience, Russell Wilson's more developed as a pocket passer, but that's not to say that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is a bad pocket passer.
Yeah. This article saying they think he'll go to the Giants.
Russell Wilson?
Yeah.
Honestly, I could maybe see him on Browns.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Deshaun Watson for the Browns right now, he just re-aggravated his injury like last month or something like that. So, and also he's been horrible since the Haslam signed him to come and play for him.
Yeah.
So that whole thing's just a whole debacle, right? It is quite the debacle.
The Haslams being the owners of the Browns.
Yeah.
No.
That's
if you live in Knoxville, Tennessee, you know who the Haslams are, like we do. But
yeah.
But yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I mean, the Deshaun Watson saga in Cleveland has been terrible.
Yeah.
The problem there is that they're handicapped to him still for that $220 million guaranteed contract. So they will have to start him simply because they paid him that amount. And their cap space is handicapped, which means they need somebody that's relatively cheap to bring in, which is where Russell Wilson comes in. $2 million contract, starter, and also takes away the fact that, like, hey, Deshaun Watson probably isn't going to be ready to go at the beginning of the year anyways. So now they've got a quarterback, and right now they've got Jameis Winston, who we all love. All right, his interviews Super Bowl week was one of the best things. I don't know that J-Bo's going to get another starting position in the NFL. He might get picked up as a backup for a quarterback that really, for a team that really needs a quarterback. But that leaves them with DTR and Cleveland, and they need somebody else.
Who are you talking about?
Jameis Winston.
Oh, I don't know what you just said. J-Bo? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's his nickname, J-Bo.
Okay. I don't know that. I don't know that. Okay. Sam Darnold, currently on the Minnesota Vikings.
I think you flip a coin on a team that needs a quarterback. I think if
he could fit in anywhere. So
do what?
Are you saying he could fit in anywhere that needs a quarterback?
I think if he has the right offensive coordinator and the right wide receivers around, that felt like hard, like a tongue twister somehow.
Good job, Dave.
But I think if you have the right offensive coordinator or head coach that's offensive minded, like he had in Vikings, and then some good wide receivers around him, like obviously going to go back, Vikings have Justin Jefferson. That's who he was thrown to. I think he might get picked up, but the problem there is the final 2 games of the season, their playoff game and the final game in regular season against the Detroit Lions, he looked horrible.
Oh no, that's
And
tough.
so he kind of looked like what he looked like on the New York Jets, which was frazzled. And so he
He
rushed
was
his.
on the Jets before.
Yes, he was supposed to be the golden goose that they drafted. And then they decided he wasn't. So they moved on from him. And then they drafted this guy named Zach Wilson from BYU, who was supposed to be the golden goose. And then he wasn't. So then they brought in Aaron Rodgers, who was supposed to be the older golden goose and lead them to a Super Bowl. And then he tore his Achilles on the fourth play. And Zach Wilson, who was supposed to sit underneath Aaron Rodgers and learn from him for
Yeah,
the next couple
to
seasons
beat
before
that guy.
Rodgers retired, ends up in the starting lineup
Yeah,
after 4 plays in the first game.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough. It's a tough. But yeah, that's funny. I didn't realize he came from the Jets because one of the fits that this article is saying is that he might be a good fit for the Jets. So that's
Yeah.
would be silly if he just went back. So
It'd
speaking
be
of the Jets,
kind of poetic.
kind of poetic. Speaking of the Jets, we have to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Last on the list, he goes to the Jets, and they have this whole redesign the whole team around him. Tore his Achilles on the fourth play after an epic entrance to that field. It was epic.
Best entrance in football that I can remember.
And then tore his Achilles, and now here we are.
Yeah.
Came back very quickly after tearing the Achilles.
He did.
We should add, which is
Record
impressive.
time.
Yeah, but yeah, they have peers that they have dropped him, and now he's a free agent.
Yes.
He's an older guy. He's Aaron Rodgers, but he is an older guy, so we got to take that into account. So you're gonna like where they think he's gonna go.
I think I know exactly where he's gonna go.
They list 4 best fits, and then they pick one as where they think they'll go. So they said Raiders, Steelers, Titans, or Vikings, but they say they think he's going to go to the Titans.
I'll run through this list really quick. The Raiders, their decision on who will be the starting quarterback, I believe their new partial owner and Tom Brady is going to have a very large conversation and input on who gets that position.
Yes.
Now, Brady respects Rodgers because he's played against him multiple times, obviously. But I think that they're going to want to go in a younger route because they're basically having to rebuild the entire team, and you've got guys that are like supposed to be their pillars, their internal pillars, like Crosby, that are I think they're getting annoyed inside with their guys that are becoming older but are phenomenal, like Max Crosby. So I think because of that, they're going to look for a new, younger quarterback to just completely restart.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'll go with Rodgers.
I don't think the Steelers will go with Rodgers. I think they're going to keep Justin Fields, like we said. So then it's the Titans and the Vikings. And
the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy last year. He was supposed to be the starter. Sam Darnold was supposed to be a bridge quarterback or solid backup that mentored J.J. McCarthy. So they've already got a first-round draft pick at quarterback.
So not going to get another. Yeah.
So I don't think he goes to the Vikings. Now, Rodgers has said that he's okay being a mentor, but I don't think that Rodgers will want to go out as a backup mentor quarterback as his last season. I think Rodgers ends up on the Titans because right now we have Mayonnaise Boy and Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, who, if we all remember back a couple years, got bonked on the head by his own helmet when he was playing the Steelers. Oh.
On the head by his own helmet?
Yes. He played. So Mason Rudolph played for the Steelers. They were playing the Browns, and they were rivals. And he was talking smack, and his helmet came off. Fenner picks it up, bonks him on the head with it.
Okay, that's tough. That's the 2
quarterbacks. You have a guy that puts mayonnaise in his coffee, and another guy that got bonked on the head by his own helmet.
Oh, God.
You'll have to look that video up after.
I mean, you can't ignore the fact that Aaron Rodgers seems to like Tennessee. He owns land in Tennessee.
Yep.
Franklin, right?
Yep. We all thought he had a chance of coming to the Titans.
Yeah.
Initially. And so I think that's a hot take because Aaron Rodgers is such a polarizing figure to a lot.
Yeah, one of the notes it says on here is that the team that takes him will have to be okay with absorbing the inevitable headlines of his arrival. And I think at this point the Titans will be.
Yeah. I mean, the Titans are a dumpster fire right now. Okay. They were the top in the AFC South. And then they were like, you know what we need to do? We were just like a couple plays away from going and winning the AFC Championship and going to the Super Bowl. We should trade away our best wide receiver that we've had in years. And then follow up, we should go ahead and pay Ryan Tannehill, who threw for less than 100 yards, and handicap ourselves salary cap. And then let's rewind to last year. Hey, the coach that was coach of the year for the NFL took us to the first AFC Championship game in years.
Yeah. We don't need him.
Let's fire him and hire this other guy that's never had a coaching position, but is offensive minded. And then he'll lead us to a worse record than we had with the former coach that we just fired for doing poorly.
Yeah.
So also,
this would be a positive.
Also, we're doing that because we like this new GM that we just hired more than Vrabel. Oh, but wait, they just fired that guy too this past year. So it's a dumpster fire. They need to rebuild completely, and I don't know that there's going to be a quarterback in this next draft class. I mean, you could argue Keenan Ward. You could try and argue Shedeur Sanders. Will Howard for Ohio State, I think, has some potential, and I think we'll find that out this week at the draft, or not the draft, the combine.
The combine, yeah.
As of right now, I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft class that'll really fill that void. So what the Titans need is someone like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, agreed. Well, all that being said, let's move on to our next story. Travis Hunter. Why he can and should play both ways in the NFL. Wink, wink. Can you explain who Travis Hunter is?
Yes. Travis Hunter is going to help be drafted this year. He won the Heisman this year. And the reason that he won the Heisman is because he is pretty much the best two-way player that we've seen since Deion Sanders.
By two-way player, it means he plays offense and defense.
He plays both corner.
Sounds exhausting.
Yep. And wide receiver, which are the two positions that run the most. He had multiple games this past year where he had both touchdowns that he caught and also interceptions. So
absolutely wild.
It's usually just when you're looking at stat lines after a game, only the quarterback has a touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter had a ratio for touchdowns and interceptions, both being extremely positive things.
Yeah.
So because of that, he was phenomenal. I think he's going to have to find a team that will allow him to play both ways. When he was coming out of high school, a lot of college programs that he was talking to wanted him to decide, was he going to be a wide receiver? Was he going to be a corner? Yeah. And that's ultimately why he ended up at Jacksonville State initially under...
We're going to Colorado?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Under Jacksonville head coach at that point, Deion Sanders. And then when Deion Sanders went to Colorado and he said famous line of, you guys better be ready. I'm bringing my bags in their Louis Vuitton, or I'm bringing my players in their Louis Vuitton, something along those lines. That's when Deion's son, Shedeur Sanders, and Travis Hunter transferred over with him.
Oh, so, I didn't realize all of the lore there.
Okay. Yeah, so the whole reason he went there, because he could have gone to an Alabama and played because he's so good. But he went there because Deion Sanders was willing to let him play both ways, wasn't going to handicap him because Deion also played both ways and was extremely good.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you're going to learn from somebody on that, I feel like Deion
Learn from the best.
Yeah. So we actually, you and me were talking about this the other week because we were talking about the draft, and I was like, "What about Travis Hunter?" Like, and you didn't think that he was going to go to a team and play both ways.
I don't think you will.
No.
I think no offense to the teams that are in the division or conference of Colorado. Pat McAfee has a statement where he says, in college you only have a certain amount of scholarship players. And the NFL, everyone is a scholarship player. They're all 5-star athletes. It's all the best of the best in the world playing in the NFL. So it's an elevated competition that you're in. I think the NFL guys are going to be too good for Travis Hunter to play both directions. Now, I could be completely wrong. He could prove me wrong. But
Yeah.
I think it's going to be way more demanding on him to try and cover an A.J. Brown and then have to go back out there and run against some of these corners and defensive backs that they've got.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. You got to think about the players he's been playing against so far. Like, he's looking amazing against them. But how does that change when you get to the level of the NFL? I will say this article it quotes Sanders saying, he gets tired of all these people saying what he is not. You need to focus on what he is. He's the best corner going into the draft. He's the best wide receiver going into the draft. He's the best football player going into the draft, and he's a great kid. So Sanders is feeling confident about him. So,
See, but a lot of people would argue that he's not the best corner in the draft.
yeah.
And that he's also not the best wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. This is one that I've kind of been thinking about. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Well, those were the big three. Now we've got a couple of little sideline gossip things to talk about. We'll start with the not as fun one. Justin Tucker allegations. NFL conducting interviews with the women who have accused him of misconduct. So, if you haven't heard, Justin Tucker, kicker for the Baltimore Ravens, amazing kicker, right? Total women now 16 from 8 different spas, accusing spas like where the players go to get massages and things, accusing him of sexual misconduct. So
big ol' yikers.
Big ol' yikers. This was announced a week or two ago. Initially, just that the allegations were against him, not 16 women. So the number of women is growing. And then details that I will not say. I don't want to read what it says. Are coming out too. So if you want to know more, do some research on your own. But it's not looking good for him. Definitely.
No, and he got caught pulling a Deshaun Watson, allegedly.
Explain that.
Allegedly.
It's all alleged still. We're still looking into it. Explain that reference.
Yeah, so Deshaun Watson, who we previously talked about, getting the record contract with the Cleveland Browns, most guaranteed money from any NFL player. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened about 2 months prior to Deshaun Watson getting that contract was that he was accused by over 40 women of sexual misconduct while getting massages. Mm-hmm. So basically, he was exposing himself, getting a little too frisky in the massage parlors with all of his masseuses.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Now, was never charged, was cleared. I believe they settled the majority of those cases outside of court. Okay. So do with that information what you will. That is basically what Justin Tucker is being accused of. Very similar things. So
Tucker remains adamant that all of these allegations are false. So we'll see where it goes.
It is one of those where you hope, just for everyone's sake, that it's fake stories. But these are super serious charges and accusations that are being made. So we'll let the court decide and let the investigators do what they got to do. I know that they are currently, NFL is doing their own investigation, and they've actively been interviewing women. So
anyway, on to some more fun news. The Yankees have changed their infamous facial hair policy. They can now have well-groomed beards, which I didn't realize. I had never thought about it, that the Yankees always had to be clean-shaven.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's why it was such a big story when the Yankees signed one of the guys this offseason, and he hadn't shaved his beard in like 16 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And he had a full beard, had to shave it completely off. So I bet that guy, he's annoyed right now.
Yeah,
I bet he's
like,
happy.
1 year later. Come on.
Yeah. But you could have done this 2 months ago.
Yeah, so where was it in here? Hold on.
And you know what? Maybe this is what was holding them back. Maybe this is why they got walked by the Dodgers this past year, is that they weren't allowed to have facial hair.
Yeah, so it's just crazy to me. Like, so back in 2013, the Yankees were informed that Brian Wilson, they would not sign with them because he wouldn't shave his beard. He just flat out refused. So it's crazy that it's taken this long for them to change this rule, considering they lost out on at least one player that they wanted.
I'm sure they've lost out on multiple.
Probably more that we don't even know, that, wasn't even talked about, but it's just interesting. But it sounds like the policy was put in place by former owner George Steinbrenner, Hal Steinbrenner, the current owner's father, in the 1970s, and that was because of his military background. So he wanted to keep things tight, but that was in the 70s, and it is now 2025. I think it's time things change. I don't know, baseball, and I feel like that's a thing. Baseball players have beards.
I would agree. Yeah.
I don't know. I like it. I'm all for a beard. So there you go.
Here's my question. Do a little Seinfeld throwback here. You think it was George Costanza that talked George Steinbrenner into instituting that when he was working for him back in the day?
Honestly, probably.
Yeah, it seems like something that George Costanza would do.
The show wasn't filmed in the 70s. It was like the late 80s and 90s, wasn't it?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Yeah.
Okay.
For anyone that hasn't watched Seinfeld, great show. You should go back and watch it.
Yeah, it is a good show. I didn't realize that his boss in the show was the actual owner of the Yankees. Yeah. I didn't realize. I didn't know that the owner's name was Steinbrenner. So you learn something new every day. Well, cool. Well, that is it for the first installment of Graveyard Shift Sports. We are your hosts, Josh and Missy Graves. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.